Today on Moviewallas, we talk about Love Lies Bleeding, Transition, and Wicked Little Letters. It's time for Moviewallas. Hi, this is Joe.
Hi, it's Rashmi.
And Yazdi as well.
Moviewallas is your weekly dose of film reviews, movie news, and general banter in theatres, on DVD, online streaming, or in the back of an airplane. If you love the movies, this show is for you. Happy effing Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Can I just say happy Friday? This has been like, I've had a rotten couple of weeks at work. I'll just say that. And so I'm like so glad it's Friday. We're doing podcasts. I brought beers because I wasn't sure if Yazdi had beers in his fridge. And I'm like,
I do have beers in
I'm sure you do, but I was like, I'm not
We're
taking
cheers.
a chance.
Are we cheering?
So beers and cheers.
Beers and cheers for Friday. Cheers.
There's a lot of
Is this drinking habit
there's
on
a lot
the
of drinking
podcast
on
now?
podcast. I know we didn't do this for years, and
Until
now
we're on camera. Now we drink on camera.
we're just trying to look like we're
Yeah.
well-hard.
Then we're just old.
We are just old. But yes, happy Friday. And
Do you want to mention your friend who brought you British treats?
well, of course, yeah. In fact, that's the very first order of business for the day. So Rashmi's dear childhood friend. Uzma.
Yes, who I've spoken many times about on the podcast.
So-
My dear, dear, beloved friend, Ozma, came from the UK. And not only was she super generous in bringing Joe and I delicious Easter eggs for Easter, which is a big deal in the UK.
That was a treat.
But she also bought Moviewallas a treat, which is a bag, a lovely bag full of delicious British goods and snacks. So we have mini rolls, chocolate mini rolls.
Which were my vote to open today. So
Yes, we have.
I haven't had these since I was a kid.
I
it feels
know,
like.
I
It's
know.
great.
Tea cakes,
And tea cakes.
which and
Which
for
look
those of
like-
us listening,
Which look
for
like firecrackers.
yeah, for those of
we
for
should
those
be-
of you who are listening, not watching, Joe is holding up each of the items
yeah.
to the camera, and then we
forget.
have childhood.
Showing things makes terrible radio.
I know. Jaffa cakes, which are
I love Jaffa cakes.
yeah, even Yazdi knows about Jaffa cakes. They're that good.
They have jelly in them.
And then something from very local to where she lives in Manchester, which is Eccles cakes.
Oh, I forgot about the Eccles cakes.
I know.
We should have those.
So we have a smorgasbord of delicious UK snacks, courtesy of delicious Ozma.
Thank you, dearest
Yes,
Ozma.
thank you.
This is such a treat. And she was very careful not just to bring stuff from England, because you can get that everywhere, but this is stuff that
You can't get in the British shop in the US generally.
Right, but it's also stuff that's very local to where
Yes.
she lives right now, which is
Yes.
the
Lovely.
Manchester area. So thank you, Osmo.
Yes.
I don't know, which one do you want to start with?
Well, I think you already claimed a stake that you wanted to open the mini
I was
rolls.
going to go for the mini rolls, but I think the Eccles cakes will
Yeah.
have a
With
shorter
beer?
shelf
What
life.
goes with beer?
Yeah.
All of this? What are you talking
Okay,
about?
fair enough.
No, let's pretend we're in the pub.
Okay.
Pub.
Inset pub, yeah, okay.
In pub in England.
I think we should do the mini rolls.
Oh, you don't want Eccles cake?
Well,
do
I
you?
want them, but I want them with tea and butter, and I want them a little toasted.
All right. Okay. I'm happy about the mini rolls.
Yes, they're kind of like cakey scones.
All right.
Okay.
In we go. I'm
Okay, we're doing mini rolls.
doing this.
And it says I'm rich and famous on the package.
That's where this is just total lies when it comes to us.
Yeah, but it says
But we're aspiring to be both.
but the mini rolls are rich in flavor and they're famous because everyone knows about them.
Yeah. It's like a drink in the UK called Vimto. It's like rich,
Oh, I
dark, and
love Vimto.
Yeah.
It's so sour.
so on the label it says rich, dark, and deliciously fruity, and I always aspired to be that.
Yeah. And Joe, you are some of those things.
Deliciously fruity.
Yes.
All right, mini rolls it is.
Okay.
We have Sawyer, the Moviewallas dog, under the table. No mini rolls for you, my dear.
Yes, it has chocolate.
It has chocolate. We can't.
Nothing
Okay,
for
and while
you.
you're doing that, Joe, shall I introduce
No
next
way.
section?
I forgot. They're
What?
individually wrapped.
Yes.
Mini rolls. Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Rashmi, you have one.
We're all gonna have-
Yes,
Can I
you
share?
Take. No, you will.
No.
You'll want your own.
If you don't eat the whole thing,
Joe will eat it for you.
I will eat the rest of it. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
force you to eat it. I will happily eat the rest of it. All right. time for business because we got 3 movies to
Yep.
talk about, and we also thought we think they're going to be fairly short reviews just because not all of us have seen them. So we thought we still had time today to do our segment of I can't find anything to watch on video on demand, and we do this because we can't find anything to watch on video on demand. There's a million things to choose from.
True.
You can't always find something to watch. So it's our job to pick something that may not be in your queue, that you may have overlooked.
Yep.
You may not realize it's out streaming right now, and something that we think you will like. So Rashmi's bursting with a pick.
Bursting.
With a pick.
So I am going to suggest the movie. It's called To Leslie, and it came out in not Two Leslies, Two, T-O, the female name Leslie. And this is the movie, if you remember, it had quite a lot of controversy around it during the Oscars last year because the lead actress, who is Andrea Riseborough, sorry, thank you, Yazdi. Andrea Riseborough did kind of behind the scenes advocating for the movie, and then other famous celebrities got involved.
Well, she herself didn't, but there were certain celebrities who fell in love with the movie, and they started,
rightly so, yeah. And so it came, and then there was a whole lot of drama about should she have been included because it didn't get necessarily a public screening, but people started screening at their house. Anyway, she got nominated, which deservedly so. This is a great movie about kind of a West Texas single mother who's struggling to provide for her son, and it's kind of just a really human story that stars Alison Janney in a great role. Alison Janney does great work. Andrea Riseborough, Mark Maron, Stephen Root, Matt Laurier, and Owen Teague. And it's a really powerful movie. I really enjoyed this one. So To Leslie.
Yeah, it worked really well.
And it's on
Netflix.
I remember the performance kind of was better than the movie, but yeah, really good pick. Yazdi, what you got going on?
So my recommendation is a movie from 2012, which is also on Netflix. And a few shows ago, the movie I had recommended was the Spanish language movie Society of the Snow, which is also on Netflix, which you should absolutely watch.
Yes, very good.
Which is about the Chilean plane crash and how people had to live in the frigid weather until they were found months later. That same director, J.A. Bayona, he's a Spanish language director. He made a movie called Monster Calls. He made a movie called The Orphanage. But his big English language break was a movie called The Impossible. And this movie stars Naomi Watts and Ewan McGregor as a British couple, which are vacationing in Asia, in Thailand, when the great tsunami of 2004 struck. And it's, this director has a way with calamities and people being pushed to the limits of their survival and their instincts. And, I think now the movie's more notable, more than anything else, for the little kid who played their 10-year-old son, which was none other than Tom Holland, who is, obviously now playing Spider-Man and other things. But it's a wonderful movie. It's exceptionally well shot. It's, I saw it at the Toronto International Film Festival, along with, it was in this giant 1,000 people cinema with crisp sound, and it's one of my favorite movie watching experiences. There's nobody I would not recommend this film to. It really speaks to we always talk about the worst of humanity emerging under hard times. This is a situation where yes, the worst emerges, but the good also emerges, and it's really a wonderful story based
on the truth, right? Based on a real story, yeah.
And just brilliant overall acting. I just without reservation, I would recommend The Impossible. Do check it out. It's on Netflix now. Joe, what's your recommendation?
I'm going to recommend Cadbury's Mini Roll, that's for sure.
I just chomped mine in like 3 bites.
This is absolutely the taste of youth. Thank you, Ozma. My pick is, it's a movie that I was surprised that I liked for many reasons. It's available currently on Netflix, and it's the movie The Phantom Thread. This is the Daniel Day-Lewis performance from amazingly 2018. How is that 6 years ago? I feel like I watched this last year. The reason I'm surprised I liked it is because it's from director Paul Thomas Anderson, who is very, very hit or miss for me. And as much as I admire Daniel Day-Lewis as an actor, sometimes I feel his intensity is just, a step too much for me.
Too method.
Well, he's always believable, but he brings such intensity to every role, and that's his thing. I get it. He's celebrated for those reasons, and he is phenomenal. And he's phenomenal in this movie. It's a character study of a fairly complex character who's a fashion designer in 1950s London. Very mercurial. Very, I feel like he's based on like one of the,
designers.
Yeah, like one of the.
Like an Yves Saint Laurent, or he's an amalgamation of like an Oscar de la Renta mixed with a,
Thank you, because I don't know my fashion names. I was really struggling with that. Exactly all of that. But it's a movie that did really work well for me. I know, Rashmi, you weren't a huge fan of it. Yazdi, I think you quite liked it. We reviewed it on the podcast back in 2018, whenever it came out. But
it's a film which you think is one thing and then it becomes something else. And so I appreciated how it kind of sneaks up on you. And not to give anything away, but it's really unpredictable in terms of where the story goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it requires patience and focus. And that's the only thing that I will say. Like anything that Paul Thomas Anderson directs, it demands that you watch it actively. This isn't a casual watch. That's not to say that this is as difficult as something like, There Will Be Blood or, one of the other Paul Thomas Anderson movies that rubs me the wrong way, The Master or something like that. But this is a movie I really admire. So,
and I think it was the first movie that introduced people or a wider group of people to Vicky Krieps. I didn't know who she was.
Correct. Yes.
And I think she got a.
I think she got a nomination. Yes.
For best actress. Yeah.
All right. Let's recap then. Rashmi, your pick was
To Leslie, Netflix.
The Impossible, also at Netflix.
And another Netflix pick this week from me, which is The Phantom Thread. All right. It is time for the podcast. Let's begin then with the movie Love Lies Bleeding.
Okay, so I have the introduction for this one. So from director Rose Glass comes an electric new love story. Reclusive gym manager Lou falls hard for Jackie, an ambitious bodybuilder headed through town to Vegas in pursuit of her dream. But their love ignites violence, pulling them deep into the web of Lou's criminal family. So this is a hard R, I believe. It is directed by Rose Glass, as I said. It is written by Rose Glass and Veronica Tofilaska. I've probably butchered that name. And it stars Kristen Stewart, Katie M. O'Brien, Ed Harris, Jenna Malone, Anna Brashnikov, and Dave Franco, amongst others. And unfortunately, Yazdi, you were the only one of us that watched this one. Should we rush out and see Kristen Stewart doing yet another little independent movie which seems very character-based?
Yes, you should. I'm frankly surprised. So this movie released about a month ago, and it's still doing so well in theaters, and that gives me hope. I always champion for little independent films, but this film is a unicorn. It's the kind of film, this is the kind of film which will cause walkouts in red states and other places. It's so looking to offend you. It's so pushing the boundaries. Here's what I will say. You take an egg and you put it in boiling water and you leave it there for about 400 days. And the product you will get is Love Lies Bleeding. It is so hard-boiled. It wants to be a noir thriller, which it is. It harkens back to those 80s films, which were kind of these erotic thrillers. But the movie itself is set in the 80s, and everybody's hair is deep fried, and everybody's jeans are acid washed, and the 80s wipe practically drools on the camera. But the movie is so committedly pulpy. I have not seen anything this pulpy on the big screen in a while. And the fact that people are kind of resonating with this is, I think this like how people go and watch The Big Lebowski at midnight screenings.
Yeah.
I think people are going to be watching Love Lies Bleeding in midnight screenings. It is a love story. It is a noir. It has this little bit of surrealism built in. It's also like this overly sexed lesbian love story. It's got so much going for it. And boy, you have to see Ed Harris to believe him. I mean, in this
Really?
movie, you haven't seen
Because
Ed Harris
he's
like
been
that.
around for a long time.
I
mean,
love Ed
just-
Harris.
I mean, I kind of, when you say Ed Harris, we all picture a certain character.
Twister,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Military guy.
He's to be seen to be believed. He plays Kristen Stewart's father.
Okay.
And then Dave Franco plays her brother-in-law. And so, and it has a very pulpy, hard-boiled vibe, and the ending, you cannot see it coming. It has a bit of Tarantino in it.
Ooh.
It's just a fusion of so many things. And I was very eager to see this because Rose Glass has made only one. I mean, she's made a lot of shorts. She's a British filmmaker. But her first movie was a horror movie called Saint Maud. And I've
I
never...
liked St. Maud. I saw that one.
Yeah, so
yeah.
Beth Accomando actually, I saw her at her house. She says, you have to watch it, and I'm not into horror. And Saint Maud is, again, another movie that has to be seen to be believed. It has one of the best ending of any film I've seen in a long while. So, and here this director is moving into a totally different kind of genre of like the kind of movies that would show up on, I don't know, Cinemax almost, but
Okay.
but it's not. It's deliberately cheesy and pulpy, and she has said that she wanted the movie to be reminiscent of Showgirls and reminiscent of those 80s kind of movies. It's just, even though it's a small independent movie, it's a work of a lot of fastidiousness. The sound design is brilliant. The special effects that are used very sparingly are so effective. Kristen Stewart plays this kind of inhibited owner of a gym, who's kind of just quietly doing her work, and she falls in love with this drifter woman who is on her way to Vegas because she wants to she wants to win a bodybuilding contest. And there is a just go and watch it.
It's very rare that you're lost for
Yeah.
words.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. It's such a unicorn. It's a great time. I mean, you will be rolling your eyes, you will be frustrated, but you will come out of that movie with 100 things to discuss and talk about. And you can't say that for films these days. It's a singular vision. It's so original. Dave Franco, I love
Dave Franco.
I have not seen him like this in a long time.
He's a great actor and a good director too, as we've seen.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's running at 93% on the tomatometer.
Yeah, and it really. I mean, there are a few love scenes in the movie, and the dialogue that they use. I'm like, they have to know that people will laugh when they hear this dialogue. But as good as the two leads are, they're so committed to it that they know this dialogue is so cheesy, but they commit to it. And we know that, Kristen Stewart is a great actor, but I think the person who walks away with this movie is Katie O'Brien.
Wow. Okay.
Who just is, apparently she's on some famous show on television, but her role is so physical because she plays this bodybuilder. But she's kind of the heart of the movie. Everything, depends on her fate in the movie, and everything is kind of triggered by that.
Okay. And she's in The Mandalorian.
She's in The Mandalorian. That's where she's from.
So that's where she's famous from.
Not for kids, not for your, not for your,
Not for gran,
not for your
granny.
conservative, relatives. But if you want something that's going to blow your mind, go see Love Lies Bleeding. I don't know if I love the movie, but I love the fact that this movie exists at all and that it's doing well commercially, and it's lovely.
Score?
Yeah, 8 out of 10.
Good.
But again, not for everyone, but if you're complaining that there's nothing good in the cinemas, go check out Love Lies Bleeding. It's something
Very
else.
good.
That sounds fantastic. All right, what's up next? We have Transition.
Yes. So we have next on our list is the documentary Transition, which is from director Jordan Bryan and Monica Villamizar. And it stars Jordan Bryan and Farzad Fitrat and Kiana Hayeri. And it's a story about this documentarian, Jordan Bryan, from Australia, who is tracked as he goes through a transformation, a gender transformation, while working with Taliban soldiers. And, you and I spoke briefly, and this is a person who is going through gender reaffirmation surgery, and at the same time has themselves implanted, during the Taliban. And those are two things I would not ever think to put together. Like, why would you do that? Like, you're emotionally going through there can't be a bigger personal transition, and to do that while you are, at great peril for life. So I haven't seen this, but I know, Rashmi, you have. Tell us about it.
And just the description as you described it, Yazdi, just caught my interest because I'm very interested in cults, and I consider something like the Taliban kind of like a cult in some ways. And, the fact that the Taliban were ruling Afghanistan and then we knocked them out and now they're back again. It would have, I think it would be interesting to see a documentary just about that. And then you throw in this other element of someone who is in the middle of transition and has to hide who they are at the peril of death, right? Because if they find out that this was a woman or is a woman transitioning into a man, then this person will be killed. And, if it wasn't a documentary, I wouldn't believe this story. If this was a feature, I would think this is too overcooked. But it really works. It's a really interesting human story about someone who is trying to do their job, i.e. they are I think the New York Times reporter, as well as someone who is very concerned and makes deep relationships with these people who plan to blow up other people who believe in this ideology. And we followed them around for a bit as well as a result. And that's interesting. And then you put all those things together and it's actually quite thrilling. And you almost are on the edge of your seat as you watch what's happening in the world, how this group of people are in the world, and then how she as a reporter or he as a reporter is then reporting on those events. So it's multifaceted and layered, and it's really well told.
Sounds very tense. I mean, I did catch the beginning of this, and I couldn't escape this sense that it's kind of like, covering yourself in shark bait and then jumping into the shark-infested water.
Yeah, great description.
Because, not only is the situation dangerous for any Western, any outsider to be in those places, but the very fact that the transgender issue there is, I mean, I don't know how the Taliban responds to that, but I get the sense that
they would kill the
it's kind of
person.
punishable by death. It's certainly not accepted within their culture. And this person entered their realm ostensibly as a man, but obviously not yet fully transitioned. In terms of a physical, obviously the identity was there, but not physically, right? There were some surgeries and various things that needed to happen to kind of go all the way there. So did it feel, I was concerned that it might feel a little artificially perilous, like, yes, this happened for real, but, was somebody just poking their head into the lion's den for artistic merit, or was there a real kind of connection that they had with what was going on there and their job to tell a story?
I think it's the latter. I think it's an interesting story on its own, any reporter going into some perilous situation like that, but then to have a reporter who, like I said, creates relationships with this group of people that have a completely opposite ideology to their own and potentially are doing terrible things, and how they live and how they're brainwashed. And how those people react to her when she's dressed like a man and going through that transition. As you said, the transition doesn't happen until the end. So essentially, she is a woman dressing as a man until the gender reclassification happens.
Well, but the gender identity is male, right? So
I guess. Yes.
He's just physically female biologically.
Yes,
but
there you go. Yeah. So I think it's just so fascinating. It's so well told. I mean, the person, Jordan Bryan is a reporter, and so you can imagine a movie made by a reporter is very intriguing.
Yeah.
So again, it's really good. Really, really enjoyed this. This is a really gutsy, interesting, brave documentary to make, because Jordan Bryan also recognizes that he will never be able to go back to this group of people without being killed, I think, once this movie is out. So really, really good documentary. I would give this easily a 7 out of 10.
Okay, that was Transition.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yazdi.
Next one.
Rashmi, are you introing Wicked Little Letters?
That would be me. I will be introducing
okay.
that. So, British director and writer Thea Sharrock has been doing a few things which are actually, I didn't know of this director, and so I looked her up. She's been doing some television. She did this whole series called The Hollow Crown, which is about different Shakespearean plays seen from the perspective of not the person, in whose person the plays have been written. And then she did this romantic comedy called Me Before You with Emilia Clarke, which came out, and Henry Golding, which came out in 2016. And then most recently in 2020, she did The One and Only Ivan, which was this Disney-ish family film about this ape kind of who's lost in the jungle, and it had Angelina Jolie voicing things, and Helen Mirren and others. And now she has made this movie, which is Wicked Little Letters, and it's apparently based on a true story about about a little town in Britain, Littlehampton, and when people in Littlehampton, including conservative local Edith, played by the one and only Olivia Colman, begin to receive letters full of hilarious profanities, the rowdy Irish migrant Rose is charged with the crime. Suspecting that something is amiss, the townswomen investigate. So, directed by Thea Sharrock, it seems like a cute little premise, and the movie has had almost universal acclaim. So I can't wait for this to be released so I can watch it. I missed the screening, but it stars Olivia Colman, like I said, Jessie Buckley, who we always like. She's always wonderful. Timothy Spall, who's also a stalwart. It's written by Johnny Sweet, and I think the movie opens very soon, if it hasn't already opened by the time you're listening to this podcast. Wicked Little Things. Tell us, Rashmi.
Okay, so if you are a fan of movies like Calendar Girls or The Lady in the Van, this is a rush out and see movie. It's in that same flavor of British movies. This has exquisite acting. It's deliciously dark and comical, and then it gets really real. It seems rather larky when it starts out. You're kind of like, what's going on here? But it does a really good job of exploring gender norms and expectations in the 1920s, but that still seem applicable to today. It's wonderful. I mean, why isn't this movie being released later in the year when I think it would get a ton of Oscar acclaim and kudos? But I hope that we will remember this. It's such good acting by every single person who comes on screen, and every character is well developed. And although somewhat predictable at times, I can't believe this really happened. This is based on a true story. Exquisite. Really enjoyed this movie.
I would go and see it for the cast alone.
Yeah.
Olivia Colman, Jessie Buckley.
Yeah.
Great pairing.
Timothy Spall, Eileen Atkins. These are like British greats. And you know when
Absolutely.
you go and see a movie with them, even if it's crappy material, they're going to do a great job. But fortunately, this is great material and a great job.
Awesome.
Yeah, really, really good.
And does it play for laughs? I mean, is it comedy? Because it's
No,
described here
it's
as a
not
comedy.
an out-and-out comedy. It's
Okay.
not an out-and-out comedy, but the comedy comes from the ridiculousness of the situations that occur. And there are some moments of, levity and laughter, mainly from Jessie Buckley, but the seriousness, the tension it creates, it's somewhat of a thriller, and it sometimes feels like
Like a mystery, right?
yeah, it's a mystery, but it's also like a really good Enid Blyton book, one of those novels that you used to read when you were younger.
The Famous Five,
like the
or-
Famous Five, Seven and Dog, all of those characters that Enid Blyton had. They're all very rich in background, and each one has a reason to do it, and each one has a reason not to do it. So it's a lot of who's doing it. And you kind of piece it together, but it's very, very good. My only criticism, if I had to have one, is Olivia Colman, unfortunately, is at risk of being typecast. You know that when you have, like we were saying about Penelope Cruz, there's always going to be a shouty scene. You know that when Olivia Colman is in a movie, there's going to be one of those kind of flip the switch kind of shouty scenes as well. She's kind of playing to type, and I hope that she does something a little bit different.
Well, it's why
But she does it so well. Exactly. She does it so well. And again, that pairing of Jessie Buckley and Olivia Colman, which we saw in The Lost Daughter. They're so good. They're exquisite on screen. Anjana Vasan, who plays like one of the other main characters.
Constables, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize she was in Mogul Mowgli, which we watched last year. Really good performance there as well. Gemma Jones, Eileen Atkins, Timothy Spall. They're all wonderful. This is a rush out and see. Easily for me, a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a great movie. This is probably one of the, after Dune 2, probably one of my favorite movies this year.
Goodness me. Wow.
Yeah,
High
really
praise
good.
Indeed.
Really good.
I don't think Olivia Colman needs to worry so much about being typecast because she's so popular right now that she's getting a lot of roles. And I was very, very heartened to find that there was a recent announcement that they're doing a remake of the movie The War of the Roses.
Oh, really?
With
with Kathleen Turner.
and Michael Douglas.
Yeah, yeah,
Douglas.
yeah.
And they're doing it with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman.
Wow.
That's very strange. I would not have picked either of those to replay. I mean, Kathleen Turner was iconic in that
Correct.
role. And to have Olivia Colman in that. So, so I think I love that, her popularity, her acclaim, her winning of Oscars and so forth is giving her access to unusual.
Yeah, yeah.
roles.
And
So-
she's an amazing actress, and I think you are in good hands when she's in a movie. I'm just concerned that it's that same.
Yeah, the Wonka and this one.
Yeah,
and it's like-
yeah. Like The Favorite, but she does it so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah. I think that's the end of your beer and the end of the podcast.
Yes.
It is indeed. Yasti, you won the race.
Yes. And I'm usually the last one.
No,
There's
not
3
so
more
much.
over there. I think we'll save them for the next
Yes.
podcast in about 30 seconds' time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for listening or watching. We are still putting these out on YouTube for a bit, so hopefully you can consume Moviewallas that way too. And YouTube does some nice things. There's some chapter things in there, so you can skip to the movie that you're interested. You don't have to listen to us drone on, or you can skip straight to our Netflix picks and things like that. The other thing that I should probably talk about is on the podcast app now on Apple is that there is a transcription. If you use Apple Podcasts on your iPhone, I don't do this. They do it for us. So when we put the podcast out, it immediately generates a full transcript of the podcast. So you can, arrest us later for things that we've said that we shouldn't have said on podcast. But B, skip to the part of the podcast that you're interested in. So really useful tools, because I think it makes podcasts a bit more useful as a reference, right?
Yeah, and I think if I've been guilty of this, like if I'm listening to a podcast and they're going to discuss 3 topics, and I'm not so interested in topic 1, then I will fast forward and I'm like, okay, get to the other topic.
Yep.
Either it's about movies or it's about, an NPR show or whatever. It really helps you kind of kind of not calibrate, but
Yeah, totally.
jump to the part that interests you.
As much as I would
great.
love for you to listen to the three of us prattle on for hours, I get that life is busy. And sometimes they're just movies you want to hear about.
Right.
So, all right. I'll wrap up the podcast now. Thank you again for listening, watching, tuning in. We are going to have more mini rolls, more tea cakes and Jaffa cakes, and Eccles cakes.
Cakes, they're all cakes.
They're all cakes, apart from the mini rolls.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very soon. So until our next podcast, tea, mini movies, 2 minute time.
Did you?
Tea, mini
How much beer?
I know, it's like half a Sapporo and a many bodies. Tea, many movies, too little time. A goodbye from me.
And me.
And me as well.